And joining us now, Ken Lewenza, the new president of the Canadian Auto Workers Union, and we welcome you to TVO and congratulate you on your new gig.
Thank you very much.
Let's start by finding out more about you, because I suspect you're not quite as famous as Buzz Hargrove in these parts. You come out of the auto industry. What was your first job?
Well, I came out of Chrysler Corporation. That's my employer today, and I started at Chrysler's in 1972 and got elected in my first steward position in 1978. And since 1978, I've carried every position in the local union up to and including the president of Local 444 for the last 15 years.
You're from Windsor originally?
I'm from Windsor, Ontario originally.
You built cars?
I built cars.
What'd you build?
I actually worked on the line and worked on the Darts. I worked on the Chrysler New Yorkers. I worked on the Sebrings. I worked on multi-vehicles back in 1972. So yes, I did. I actually assembled vehicles.
What got you into union politics?
Well, my father was a trade unionist. My father was a representative in the Chrysler plant, and obviously when I became 18 years old, he said, by the way, Chrysler's is hiring, so I suggest you get over there and put in your application, and I did, and I've been there ever since.
At what point does someone start aspiring or thinking about aspiring to the presidency of a very big, important union in this country?
Well, I never inspired to be the national president. I never inspired to be the local union president. The facts of the matter is, the way our process works is if you work hard, if you give it all you've got, and you put in the effort, you win the confidence of your members, and I've ultimately won the confidence of the national union and the 200,000 members throughout Canada.
You have done that, but you will not be surprised to hear me say that there have been some claims that the fix was in when you took over the presidency. And I want to just talk about that for a little bit. Some people have said you and the outgoing president, Buzz Hargrove, essentially orchestrated your takeover with no vote. What do you say to that? That's
so untrue. The reality is our process in terms of selecting a successor has been in place for the last 25 years. It worked under Bob White when Buzz Hargrove succeeded Bob, and I succeeded Buzz. And the process is pretty simple. You get a recommendation from the rank and file National Executive Board of the Union for a successor to Buzz, but you still have to get the ultimate support from the membership voted on at Constitution. So you can have the recommendation, which we were there, but the members elected to the Constitutional Convention has the ultimate say on who's...
And did they vote?
And they gave me an acclamation last Saturday.
So nobody ran against you?
Nobody ran against me.
Why not?
Well, I think that they believe that they've got a guy with a lot of experience. They've seen my effort as the CAW National Council President. They see what I bring to the job. And quite frankly, there was always overwhelming support for me in my previous positions as CAW Council President. And I think the confidence was just carried over. There were some people obviously showing an interest, but at the end of the day, it was decided that they weren't likely to beat me, and they came in behind me and supported me.
But you've heard this, there have been a number of accounts in the newspapers about how this all went down, and some have suggested that the union cared more about its display of unity behind the new slate rather than being as democratic as it thinks it is. Would you comment on that?
Well, we're very much concerned about unity. That's the strength of the union, is unity, but we are also very, very much democratic. I mean, anybody had an opportunity to run for the position, and our process is in place to ensure that we have some continuity, but at the same time, the democratic process is probably the most screened out process one organization could have. So like I said, if there was somebody interested in being the national president, they had the ability to do it, and the constitutional elected delegates throughout Canada would have made the ultimate decision. And I think, again, it's political opportunism within the union for people to make those accusations, but that's their opinion. The reality is, I think I won the confidence of our members regardless of the process.
Okay, let's talk about the Secretary-Treasurer's job, though. There is somebody who wants to run for the Secretary-Treasurer's job, who I gather is being urged not to run for the Secretary-Treasurer's job. Carol Phillips.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Carol's been the assistant to the president for quite some time, and she's shown an interest in the national secretary's position. And obviously, the same process was used in on my election. The opposition backed off. She has not backed off. So there's going to be an election in 8 months from now on our regular convention where I will have to seek re-election for a new mandate. And that's Carol's absolute right to run. That's a democratic process of the union. She's entitled to run.
Do you have a problem with her running?
No, I absolutely don't. That's a democratic process of the union. I'm a little bit flustered from time to time in terms of her supporting the existing processes that we've established to keep continuity, to keep unity within the ranks, and to make sure the transition is in the best interest of our members. But I would certainly not argue that she doesn't have the democratic right to run.
No, I understand, and obviously there are competing interests you got to weigh here. Unity's important, presenting a strong slate's important, democracy's important.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, from what I'm reading and hearing, it sounds like a lot of pressure has been put on her not to let her name stand, and in fact to try to get her not to run. Is that not true?
No, just the opposite.
It's not true?
There's been no discussion relative to her ability to run or not to run. Since I've taken over, I've obviously addressing membership issues. The election is the furthest thing from anyone's mind at the National Union right now because we have a major crisis going on from one workplace to another. So I'm not even thinking about the election. There's no discussion about the election. The election will be in 8 months, and if she decides to seek the position of National Secretary Treasurer, she'll be running against Peter Kennedy. We'll have an election. The democratic process will play itself out, but the most important issue today is defending the interest of our members.
We're going to get to that. Who, in Kennedy versus Phillips, who are you voting for?
Peter Kennedy.
How come?
Because he's been the assistant to Jimmy O'Neill, who is presently the Secretary Treasurer, and he's got the total support of the rank and file National Executive Board, and he's got the total support of the national staff of our union, which is obviously important in terms of moving forward.
They couldn't have the total support, or this other person wouldn't be running.
Well, when I say total support, majority support. So I'm very, very confident that Peter can do the job, and I will be supporting Peter in 8 months, and I look forward to working with him, but I also look forward to turning the page, getting the elections over, and moving forward.
The bottom line here is that obviously some are alleging that your union isn't as democratic as you think or pretend that it is.
Well,
you don't agree with that?
No, I absolutely don't agree with it. Everybody who gets an opportunity to vote must get elected by their peers to participate at the Constitutional Convention. The reality is anybody could submit their name who's elected to the Constitutional Convention to run for any of the top 3 officers of the union. So we're very democratic, and again, I just believe that this situation has been exaggerated because somebody has shown an interest. Our democratic process is airtight, and I would suggest to you that our democracy is more sincere than most.
Let's talk about your struggling sector. What's the biggest problem right now in the Canadian auto sector?
Market share, market share, market share. The big 3 are losing significant market share. They're below 50%, closer to 45%.
Why do you think that is?
Well, a number of factors. In the last couple of months, and the significant decline in the last couple of months is really related to gas prices and the perceived fact that the big 3 do not provide vehicles that the consumers want. The other factor is, I believe, unfair trading relationships with other countries. We've emphasized that more than once, and we have the data to prove it. And then the third thing, and just as important, is the U.S. economy. I mean, we went into this calendar year expecting to sell about 16 million units in the United States. It's now down to about 14.2. That's 2 million units off their predictions because of the slowdown in the U.S. economy. And we're having a negative impact in that particular area. But the whole problem in the auto industry is market share today, and we believe a lot of it is related to unfair trade and, of course, the U.S. economy.
Some of it, of course, is related to the first thing you said, which is the price of gas is high.
Yep.
Is it fair to say you aren't building the kind of cars people want to buy, given $1.30 a liter price of gas?
It's more than fair. It's factual. Chrysler, GM, and Fords relied on SUV, large trucks, minivans for quite some time, and the significant turnaround on energy costs, the compiling problems that they've had has just been fairly significant. They're feeling the pinch. So it's multi-problems, beginning with what the consumers want, of course, but the market has a lot to do with it.
The Ontario government in particular, and the federal government a little bit, are providing significant subsidies to the auto industry. Do you need those subsidies?
Today we do. I mean, the reality is we've been emphasizing that the companies need support from government because every country, every state that manufactures automobiles plays a partnership role with the auto industry. I can tell you that there's bidding going on for plants, for manufacturing facilities. So the government's got to get their foot in the door. The government's got to play a role because there's too many options for these corporations today to invest elsewhere.
So without that role, what happens?
The industry is going to continue to fall in decline because I can tell you in most automobile countries and states, they're providing subsidies, they're providing incentives, they're providing opportunities to entice that investment to come into their state, into their country. And we've got to be in the game.
Let me read you some statistics that we got from StatsCan about wages. Average unionized worker makes $23.58 an hour. The average non-union worker makes $18.98 an hour. Full-time union worker, $24.15. Full-time non-union worker, $20.55. Part-time union worker, $19.99. Part-time non-union worker, $12.56. Foreign car makers are operating plants, creating jobs. North American car makers are having a tougher time and shedding jobs. More of the domestic industry is unionized, obviously, than more of the foreign manufacturer. Is there a simple lesson there?
No, because we've been able to influence the total compensation cost to the new entries into Canada, which is Honda and Toyota. On an hourly total compensation rate, Honda and Toyota are comparable to the big three. And the reason they're comparable is because we've been able to influence their compensation package to keep the union out. If they would have come in Honda and Toyota and paid workers $17, $18, $19 an hour below what the CAW has been able to bargain for our members, then they would be unionized by now. So Toyota and Honda has strategically maintained that the compensation levels in terms of the hourly rate of pay is comparable to the big three, which keeps the union out. But there's going to be a time those workers are going to talk about pension security, they're going to talk about job security. Obviously, they're not in that position today, but time will come.
You think you will eventually unionize those plants?
Oh, I think as the workforce ages, as the workforce starts looking at pensions, as they start looking at their longer-term security, I think we have a potential. I think we have a possibility. But like any other organizing drive, we have to win their confidence. We have to tell them what the difference between non-union and union workplaces are. And just on a simple fact, since the bargaining with the UAW, where the UAW made significant changes to the collective agreement, some of the senior levels of the Toyota management team said they have to start rolling back wages and benefits to the Toyota workers. So if they do that, in comparison with the UAW and maintain that advantage, I think workers will rebel and they'll want to join a union.
One follow-up on that. You said as the workforce ages. Do I infer from that that the older people get, the more interested they are in unions, but the younger they are, the less interested they are?
Well, I think the older you get, the more concerned you are about your long-term income survival, and I'm talking about pension rights, I'm talking about health care rights. Today, our retirees in the big three do have health care benefits. They don't have it at Honda and Toyota. So eventually, Honda and Toyota workers will ask, well, what happens when I retire? Am I going to be taken care of? Am I going to be protected? And those are the times I believe they're going to use the union as an avenue to make the progress necessary for them to take care of themselves and their families.
Ken, this is election time, so we do have to talk some politics. The CAW has always been involved in politics. In your acceptance speech, you said, quote, "I hold Mr. Harper accountable for every unemployed manufacturing worker in Canada." Is that a bit harsh?
That's more than harsh. That's a little bit exaggerated, but I do hold him accountable for majority of the 170,000 manufacturing job losses in Canada. I hold him accountable for the state of the economy that we see ourselves in today, where most people feel uncertain about their job. They feel insecure about their job. They're on the edge. Manufacturer workers that are working today feel insecure, on top of the 170,000 people that have lost their job because of a lack of government policy on preserving the manufacturing sector.
Pursue that. Why is it his fault?
Well, because he can enact government policies that could change the direction of the climate in Canada. For example, when the Canadian dollar shot through the roof, we call it the petrodollar, he could have slowed that down by simply stating publicly that he's not going to sell off our natural resources or even slow down our natural resources. Because we have this petrodollar today, and all the manufacturing job losses we've had today, including just recently John Deere, there was no blame on the workforce. There was no accusations that it wasn't productive workforce. It wasn't a quality workforce. The dollar itself, the petrodollar itself, is causing this demise. Just on that issue alone, they could have stepped in and avoided this escalation of job loss.
Cost of labor is not a factor?
Not at all.
The border with America is not a factor?
I don't believe it's a factor. I mean, we talk to these employers, and the employers are telling us one at a time, sorry folks, it's not about the workforce, it's not about the wage package, it's not about the delays at the border, it's simply that we can't compete with this dollar and the uncertainties surrounding that dollar as they consolidate. So there's lots of things that the Canadian government can do, including dealing with the question of fair trade versus free trade.
Let me get you to weigh in on the Magna deal. Buzz Hargrove was here not too long ago talking about this Very new way of doing business where you get to unionize Magna for the first time ever, and in exchange, you have to give up the right to strike. What's your view of that?
I supported it, and I still support it, because strikes
Well, you didn't support it behind closed doors.
No, I raised some apprehension about it based on our historical structure and cultures of our union. But I support the fact that the Magna workers are entitled to a union. The Magna workers are entitled to a collective agreement. They're entitled to vote on the collective agreement we bargained for them, whether they want to determine to join the union or not. And just imagine us saying to a large corporation like Magna, hey, the only issue is whether you have the right to strike or not, when 2% of the labor contracts in Canada are resolved through a strike. So, you know, I mean, workers are entitled to representation, and why I support it, because the Magna workers themselves make the ultimate decision. Not Buzz Hargrove, not Ken Lewenza, not the CAW. The Magna workers themselves will decide through the democratic processes to vote whether they want the union under the conditions we have established with Magna Corporation.
Fair to say your views evolved on this?
Well, it's changed. I mean, there was lots of reluctance. What people don't know in the general community, this kind of conversation was going on for 2 or 3 years with Magna Corporation. Obviously, there was a lot of negotiations going on. But when you take a look at the final framework agreement, the principled position of the union is the workers get a collective agreement. The workers get a say in their workplace. The workers get a say in their wages and benefits, and then they have the ultimate decision to vote on it. And I think that's in the interest of our union, and I think it's in the interest of Magna workers.
Is that a model for other workplaces in your view? It
could possibly be. This is a real test for us. We've come out of the chute with Magna a little bit slower than we wanted to, but we're working on getting it back on track, and we're working on showing people that it could work, and we're working on giving the Magna workers the confidence that if they join our union, it's in their interest, and of course it's in our interest.
Last 30 seconds. Can you guys still rock the vote like once upon a time?
Well, I think we can. I think we're credible. I think the arguments that we present on behalf of our members and Canadians more general are credible. In fact, I would suggest to you that we may have to rock the boat even more moving forward in terms of advancing the progressive causes that citizens want in Canada and our members need. So we're going to continue to do what we can to advance the causes of our members and workers more generally.
Ken Lewenza, President of the CAW. Good of you to visit us at TVO tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Steve.